Hare Krishna, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutle Srimate, Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi, Kauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Pashyata Desatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhaktavan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam. Pangum langaite girim yat kripa tamham vande Shri Gurun Deenatarini. Hare Krishna. So today we'll see verse number 34 of chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. And this is continuation of Arjuna's question to Krishna, that the yoga practice that you have explained looks impossible for me to do because the mind is chanchal and unsteady. So let's see what is his further reason why he's saying that it's difficult to control the mind. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna
Sanchalam ki mana Krishna,
pramadhi balavadrudham
Pramati Balavadridam,
asyaham nigraham manye
Tasyaham Nigraham Manye,
vayoriva sadushkaram sudushkaram.
Vayo Rivasi Duskaram,
Chanchalam hi mana Krishna
Sanchalam ki mana Krishna,
Pramati balavadrudam
Pramati Balavadridam,
Syaham nigraham manye
Tasyaham Nigraham Manye,
Vayoriva sudushkaram.
Vayo Rivasi Duskaram,
Please chant. Krishna.
Sanchalam ki mana Krishna, Pramati Balavadridam, Tasyaham Nigraham Manye, Vayo Rivasi Duskaram.
चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि बलवदृढं तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये वायोरिव सुदुष्करम्.
Okay, thank you very much. So, translation and purport. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Purport. The mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence, although mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For a man in practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium towards both friends and enemies, but ultimately, no worldly man can do so, for this is more difficult than controlling the raging wind. In the Vedic literature, Katha Upanishad 1.3.3 and 4, it is said, Atmanam Rathinam Viti Shariram Ratham Evacha Buddhim Tu Sarathim Vidi Manha Pragraham Evacha Indriyani Hayan Ahur Vishayam Steshu Gocharan Atmendriya Manoyuktam Bhokteti Ahurmanisina. The individual is the passenger in the car of material body, and intelligence is the driver. Mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer in association of mind and senses, so it is understood by great thinkers. Intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but the mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes even one's own intelligence. As an acute infection may surpass the efficiency of the medicine, such a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by practice of yoga. But such practice is never practical for worldly person like Arjuna. What can we say of modern man? The simile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind, and it is even more difficult to capture a turbulent mind. The easiest way to control the mind is suggested by Lord Chaitanya. Is chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance in all humility. The method prescribed is Savai Mana Krishna Patar Vindayo. One must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. Only then will there remain no other engagement to agitate the mind. So, in this verse, there is no question, but it is the extension of the last verse where Arjuna said to Krishna that I think it is difficult to do this practice because mind is chanchala and astira. So now Arjuna is giving the more explanation, and you can say these are the properties or characteristics of the mind in the first line, and the second line Arjuna says gives the example, right? Example of wind. So we living in Japan, we generally know, right, how difficult it is to control the wind. Actually, it cannot be controlled. When there is big typhoons in July and August, September, sometimes it happens that if the typhoon is strong and the wind speed is going to be high, the city or the trains and buses, everything had to stop, right? Because the wind is so powerful, the trains cannot go, people cannot walk. We can see many videos on the YouTube also about the strong wind when typhoon comes. We cannot walk also on the road, plain road also. So nobody can control the wind that is having strong wind with no direction. And then what we have to do? Then we have to shut down the city, right? So we don't try to control the wind or direct the wind. No, it's not possible. So similarly, Arjuna is telling you are saying to stop the mind or control the mind, but it is very difficult. Why? Well, three things. Pramadi balavad drudham. It's very agitating. It is very strong and it is very obstinate or determined. So we can see examples like when small kids also, if they want some particular game or particular toy, they are so attached to it that they will not give up till they get that toy in their hand. Similarly, grown up peoples also, if they're attached to something, then the mind is so obstinate that till we achieve that particular thing, it does not rest. It bewilders the person. He does so many wrong things. Even though the intelligence tells that don't do these things, but the mind is not under the control of intelligence. In reverse to that, it controls the intelligence. The mind uses the intelligence to find out different ways to fulfill its own desires. That's why it's the mind is that's how the mind is very strong. It can overcome the intelligence also. So whereas intelligence is supposed to control the mind, but at most of the times mind controls the intelligence because it is very strong. So here Krishna or Arjuna is representing all of us. He's telling that mind um, as the king of the senses or leader of the senses is very, very strong. Krishna, it is Chanchala. Achala means does not move, and Chanchala means it moves. It cannot be steady. It's flickering. It moves continuously, and it moves with such a speed that it's very strong and it's very determined. We cannot control it. So that's why, like, we can see examples like when the wild animals are bring to the zoo or circus, people try to control that animal. Sometimes they can control that animal very easily, but if they have brought a horse, a wild horse, which is very strong and it can withstand the pressure, uh, then that to control that one horse, so many people are required. Still, it cannot be controlled because of its power. So similarly, mind, though we cannot see, is it's very powerful. The thing one is that if we see something, as enemy. We can at least understand it is strong or it is weak when we see the gross physical form. But the mind we cannot see, right? That's why it is more problematic, because we cannot see, we cannot judge it. So that's how the mind is so strong that it drives away the intelligence, and then you cannot control it. And Arjuna is clearly saying that it's not possible to control. It's more difficult than controlling the wind, right? So it means it's almost not possible. So now uh, Arjuna's question, Krishna has to answer how this mind can be controlled, how we can at least regulate it. What's the process? Because otherwise Arjuna will say, I cannot do it. Right? So also one of the reason here Arjuna's question is that this dhyana yoga that Krishna has explained, Arjuna is trying to tell that this dhyana yoga, though it may give you good realizations or different stages of realization, it is very difficult to do in this Kali Yuga also. For Arjuna it is difficult, so for Kali Yuga it is more difficult. So Arjuna in one way pointing out the difficulty of executing the Dhyana Yoga, so that people in general will understand what the path should be if they really want to progress in the spiritual realizations. So let us see. So Krishna has to answer all these questions. It's a genuine question which is applicable to everyone. And here, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of the chariot with horses as the senses, reins as the mind, and this charioteer is actually the intelligence who will control the mind through the reins, and the owner or the proprietor of the charioteer is just sitting to go somewhere, which is represents the soul. So if the intelligence don't control the mind and the senses, it's very difficult to go to right direction and right goal. Other it will go, if intelligence don't work, it will take you to a place where you are not actually supposed to go or you didn't want to go. So that's the characteristics of the mind: strong, chanchala, dhrudha, and pramadhi, balavat, and dhrudham. So for us also, we face the challenge of the mind. So the next verses that Krishna will explain to Arjuna how to control this mind actually is really helpful for our sadhana also. When we do chanting, we get disturbed by the mind. So how we can regulate the mind? Controlling is impossible as told by Arjuna, but if we can regulate it or if we can control it, that Krishna will give the answer in next few verses. So we'll see that from tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, realizations? Okay, thank you so much for joining the class every day and keeping this going, keeping inspiring. It's very enlivening to read, discuss Bhagavad Gita with all of you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.